Alright, good morning. I'm going to go through a few questions. Alright, so your question is which of the following points, if added to the graph above, will cause the relation to not be a function? And we learned in class that if you do the vertical line test, right, you draw a line through any points. If it has two y values, so I'll draw an example. Like if there was a point down here, this vertical line hit 2 points, so it fails the test. So basically what you're doing, get away from me. Basically, sorry about that. Alright, so you can plot these points and basically see which one would make this function of dots, or this graph of dots, not a function. So 2, 3, remember this is x and this is y. So I'm going to go to 2, then go up to 3 and make a point. That's okay. If I do the vertical line test, it still passes. Now if I did B, I'd go to 4, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It still passes the vertical line test if I was to draw them. C, I'd go to 1, 2, 3, negative 2, and there you go. That is the answer for the one that would not be a function, because if I was to draw a vertical line, it hits more than one y value, and it fails, because remember, a function has to have at least, every x value has to have only one y value. Alright, number 23. So which of the following statements is true about the statement f of 5 equals 12? Okay, so let's work on this. Remember, I always tell you guys x is inside of here, and that is y. Okay, so the coordinate for that would be the x value of 5 and the y value of 12. Okay, so the point 5, 12 is on the graph of the function f. That's just basically fancy for saying the point 5, 12 would be on the graph according to that. And that's true. That's what I just wrote down. Okay. The number 5 is an element of the range. Once again, they like to make things sound very complicated, but range, we know, goes on the y-axis, right? The 5 goes with the x. So the 5 is not dealing anything with the range. Okay. If they said the 12 is an element of the range, I would agree, because that is the y value, right? Now see, 12 would be the value of the independent variable, and 5 would be the value of the dependent variable. So if you have a table, this is beautiful. X, Y, and I'm just making stuff up, but like, I don't know, number of minutes would be your X, and distance traveled in feet. So let's say we had these numbers down, and the X value was 5, and the Y value was 12. Remember that this side is always going to be your independent variable, because this is the side that you can control. Your number of deposits, the number of minutes, the number of seconds, the number of ice cream toppings you get. This side is your dependent variable, always. It's the thing that changes based on the number, of x values that you have. So 12 would be the value of the independent variable. That is not true, because this 12 is on the side of the dependent variable. Okay? So that is why the other 12 are wrong, and 23 for sure is correct. Alright, this one takes a little bit of knowledge. Domain is how wide a function is. Okay? So you can tell that this graph is continuous because the points are connected. So if it is continuous, you need your setup like this. And for range, it's the same thing except you use a y. Alright? So once again, domain is for how wide it is. I'm looking at my x-axis for this, that's why we wrote x there. The smallest x value is here, and it's 0. So you're going to put a 0 there. And the biggest x value, it goes up to 7. See that? So the answer is 7. What is the range of the function? We always do that weird thing with the voices, going from low to high. So it is the y values. In this case, the degrees in Fahrenheit. So if you look at the lowest point in this graph, on the y-axis, it's -3. And it goes all the way up to +3. Right? So that is that. What is the meaning of the f-intercept? If you look, we know it as the y-axis, but here they're calling it the f-axis. So if they're saying what is the meaning of the y-intercept, they're kind of basically telling you to look for the y-intercept. And the y-intercept, I know you guys are able to look and find it, is right here. Okay? So when you interpret what that means, just basically explain out what the numbers are with the variables. So it is -2 degrees, Fahrenheit at 0 hours. Okay, so -2 degrees at 0 hours. At what time T is the minimum temperature reached? We already looked at that. That's part of the range. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. The minimum temperature would be looking up and down, since this y-axis, or f-axis, is degrees in Fahrenheit. This is the lowest temperature. They want us to write down what time it is, and the time is at 6 hours. At what interval of time is the temperature decreasing, which means it's going down? When we do that, we're looking at the x-axis. So it is between the time of 3 hours, right? That's when it starts to decrease, and it stops decreasing at 6 hours, right? And what does the statement f of 5 equals -2 represent? Remember, this is x, and that is y. So at 5 hours, it would be -2 degrees. I shouldn't say it would be, it was -2 degrees. Okay? Alright? Moving on to number 31. Look at the 3 sequences below. They give you this one, right? F of 0 equals 45, f of n equals f of n minus 1, and that whole thing is subtracted by 4. That looks like a recursive formula. Sequence 2 looks like an explicit formula. Sequence 3 is just a sequence of dots. Okay? So you're trying to find out which one is arithmetic. Remember, we've been saying arithmetic is really addition or subtraction, even though it's really only addition, but I'll leave it at addition or subtraction. So I'm able to see easily that this is subtraction and that this is subtraction. So I know these two are, but now we need to find out what's going on here. To get from 45 to 41, they would subtract 4. From 41 to 37, they'd subtract 4. So this one also has the same pattern. It's going down by 4. So all 3 of them are arithmetic. That's it. Moving on. Okay, so number 32. Frida's keeping track of how many coupons she has saved on a piece of paper. She spilled some coffee on the paper. Her list now looks like this. So for each of these, it says that this blotch, or this spill of coffee stain, represents where the coffee spill occurred. So they tell you, all they tell you, is that she started off with 30 coupons, and after 3 weeks she's got 240 coupons. So there's 2 ways to get from 30 to 240 that would satisfy this number of weeks. First one they want you to figure out is like an arithmetic way, addition or subtraction, to get from 30 to 240, and geometric, which we've been saying is multiplication, is the other way, or that you have to figure out how to get from 30 to 240. So basically, if I were you, I would just keep trying to add by different numbers. 30 plus 10. If you're adding by 10 each week, you're not going to get to 240 in 10. If you're adding by 30 each week, you know, this week would be 60, this week would be 90, you're still not there. Eventually, if you keep guessing and checking, you'd recognize that you need to add by 70. Because 30 plus 70 would give you 100. 100 plus 70 would give you 240. So your answers for this would be 100 and 170. Alright, now for the bottom one for geometric, you need to figure out what number they're multiplying by to get from 30 to 240. If you're multiplying by 1, you know that's not going to do anything. If you multiply by 2, which would be the next number up, 30 times 2 would give you 60. 60 times 2 would give you 120. And 120 times 2 gives you 240. So that is the next one. Okay? So that is number 32. Number 33. We explained this one in class, but I'll go over it again real quickly. In art class, blah, 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 blah. They give you two equations. They give you a recursive and an explicit. And this recursive right here, they tell you that the first term is 3. So if you were to make a table, they want you to write the first 5 terms, right? That is horrible. Gosh. Okay, I'll write it over here. They want you to write the first 5 terms. You know, over here, you're going to have your x's. Here you're going to have your y's, or really in this case, f of x's, f of n's. So they told you the first term is going to equal 3. Right? So there's your first one. They want you to do 4 more. You need to have the first 5 terms. Here, in this recursive formula, they tell you that you're multiplying by 2. So the x values just keep going up. Right? That doesn't change. And what you're going to do is just multiply by 2 for each of these steps. So, good. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. Get away from me. 24 times 2 is 48. Okay? So, there is that. That's A. This B, you want to find the value of f of 30. Just like function notation, know that x is inside. And it is more efficient to use the recursive or explicit formula. If you do the recursive formula, you're literally going to have to multiply by 2 like 29 times to get from here to keep multiplying all the way down to find out what the 30th term is going to be. It is not efficient. What is efficient is using the explicit formula. Because this explicit formula, they gave you a setup where basically you just plug in the value for n, or we know it as x usually. So they want us to find out what f of 30 is. Right here. N, right? So you would just substitute in 30 for n because that's what they've given us. You do 3 times 2 to the 30 minus 1 power. That's going to become f of 30 equals 3 times 2 to the 29th power. And whatever 2 to the 29th power is, if you multiply that by 3, that's going to be your answer. Okay? And I just read the question. It just was asking which one's more efficient. So if you explain that the explicit formula is more efficient because you could plug in any value for n, that is a perfect answer. But this is if you want to show the assessment mathematically how to get there. Alright, number 40, look at the system of equations below. Y equals mx plus b, y equals 6x plus 15. Alright, this is tough. You have to figure out which of these statements are true. A we'll come back to because they're saying basically that all the statements are true. B, C, and D. Alright, so now, pretend this is a graph. This says if M equals 6, which is what this is, and B does not equal 15, so B was another number, then the lines are parallel, and there's no solutions. Solutions means, where they cross. So like the graphs would be there. That right there is a solution. So let's make up something to make this work. So they said M equals 6, but B has to be something else. So I'll do like the number 5, okay? If you remembered that this number that's by itself is the y-intercept, it's step 0, it's what we have. So for this one that I just made up, you would go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is going to be the intercept for that. For this one, it's going to be starting up all the way at the number 15. Both of these are increasing. The rate of change is going up by 6 for each step. So $6 for each bracelet or whatever. So both of them would be going up at the same speed. Okay? So those lines are parallel. They're never going to cross, which means they would have no solutions, which is correct. Okay? So that is why B is correct. Now if M is not 6, then the lines intersect and there is one solution to the system. So let's practice that. Boop. Boop. Okay, so if M is not 6, then the lines would intersect. Well, let's see. Alright, now for C they tell you that, all they tell you is that if M is not equal to 6, so the rate of change at how fast it's going up, is not equal to 6, then the lines will intersect and there is one solution to the system. So let's pick a number for this that would not equal to 6. So I'm just going to go with 4. So y equals 4x, and just to keep it simple, I'm going to say plus 15. According to what I just wrote down, both of these should start at 15 on your y-axis. Your 6x is, and you can put this in the calculator to see it. If you put 6x plus 15 in y1, and this one that I just made up, 4x plus 15 and y2, and you press the graph, you'd see that they would look something like that, right? That's a very ugly drawing. But they only intersect once, which means that there is one solution. So that is true. They're just increasing at different rates, okay? Alright, the last one says if M equals 6 and B equals 15, the lines are going to be the same, and there's an infinite number of solutions to the system. So for this top one, instead of y equals mx plus b, they're telling you that M is 6, right? Keep the x. And B is 15. That's the exact same thing as this line that they gave you, right? If you put both of these in your calculator, just if you wanted to see, if you put that in y1 and this in y2, you're going to have only one graph that shows up, or one line that shows up. And that's because basically what your graph is doing is it's basically graphing the same thing twice. They're both starting at $15 or whatever the scenario is talking about, and they're both increasing of a rate of change of, it's going up by 6 for every x value. Okay? Number 41, I don't have the calculator app on my computer at home, so I can't put this in, but it tells you to look at the system of equations below, and what is the number of solutions? So basically that's just asking you number of times that they cross, or you could think of that as intersect. Alright, so if you were to put that on, and these are fractions, so just so you don't get messed up, you can either find out what 4 divided by 5 is and put in a decimal instead of that, just so it doesn't mess up your value, or if you're putting it in, when you put this top equation into y1, remember, put a parentheses, 4 divided by 5, close that, okay? Because you're trying to say the 4 is being divided by the 5 only. Put an x next to that, and then add by 7. Follow that same process for y2, which is this over here. When you put it in, you should do open parentheses, 3 divided by 4, close it, x plus 7. I mean, you could easily also just put in 0.8 or 0.80, whatever, instead of 4 divided by 5, or 0.75, okay? And refer to your answer key for the answer, but I know that you guys can put this into y1 and y2 and see how many times they cross. If it looked like this, you know, then there's only one solution. If it ended up looking like this or like that, and it never looks like it's going to cross, there is 0 solutions, okay? Infinite number of solutions, that's where you would have only one line showing up. And you can go to second graph, guys. If you look at second graph, which takes you to your table, it'll also show you, if it's an infinite number of solutions, your y1s and y2s on that table would be the exact same thing every time, okay? That's pretty rare for what we're doing, but it does happen here and there. Okay. Alright, number 43. Old MacDonald has a farm with some cows and goats. Each day Old MacDonald collects 106 gallons of milk, blah, 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 blah. Alright, just to keep things easier for your minds to grasp, instead of C for the number of cows, I'm going to use X. And instead of G, I'm going to use Y. I like that they're using C and G. I do. And if you're able to keep this, you know, system of equations concept in your mind and solve it with the C and G, that's great. But I'm going to use X and Y. So write a system of equations to model the situation. So they kind of separated this into two things. So my mind is thinking that I need an equation for this and an equation for that. So each day Old MacDonald collects 106 gallons of milk. Each cow produces 12 gallons of milk, and each goat produces 1 gallon of milk. So each cow produces 12 gallons of milk. Instead of C, I said I'll use X. So 12 gallons of milk for each cow. Plus, the goats are producing 1 gallon of milk. So 1, and I said I'll use Y for goats. So plus 1Y. And each day that equals 106 gallons of milk. So that would be the equation for that first little paragraph. Second one says each day the cows and goats eat 420 pounds of food, and each cow eats 50 pounds. So I'll do 50x plus each goat eats 2 pounds of food. 2y equals, and this equals 420, right? Alright. So now, in order to answer, and this is all you have to do for this top part, write a system of equations to model the situation. I want you to go a little further, which would help you solve for B. In order to determine how many cows and goats Old MacDonald has, that's going to be the point where they cross. Okay? So, for this, you would solve it. I'm going to run out of room. You know what I'll do? Oh, no. I'm just going to rewrite that. 50x equals 420. Alright, I just wanted to make some space in order to solve these two. So right now we're solving for y in order to put in y equals in our calculator. Get rid of that 12x. Get rid of that 12x. And this one was pretty fast. Y equals 106 minus 12x. You could put that in for y1. Okay? Now for y2, same thing, you're solving for y. Get rid of that 50x. Get rid of that 50x. Now you've got 2y equals 420 minus 50x. Okay. And the last step is to get rid of this 2. We know that there's multiplication hiding in there, right? So to get rid of it, you would do the inverse, which is division. Bam. So for the second equation that you put in a y2, y would equal 210 minus 25x. Okay? Alright, so put that into y1, put that into y2. So when you put this into y1 and this into y2, you're basically looking, right, and when you go to second graph, you're looking for the point where you have the same y value on both sides. That's going to give you your answer. And when I did it on my calculator, I had x, when x was 8, y1 and y2 were both 10. So I know that is my answer. Okay? So bringing it back to what we said earlier, we said x is the number of cows and y, or they said g, is the number of goats. So when they say determine how many cows and goats Old MacDonald had, this 6 goes with x and these 10s go with y. So your answer would be 8 cows and 10 goats. That's the point where the system of equations crosses. That's where they're equal. Okay? And reminder, I'm going through this quickly, but I would expect you guys to write a more detailed sentence than that. Alright, and that is all I had requests for. If I don't see you before you take your test, knock it out, guys. Work hard. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.